So I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in today to learn about HomebuildersCAN, a supportive carbon action network for home builders. I'm Tracy, a senior associate at RMI, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. So Chris, if you'll do me the pleasure of advancing to the speaker slide. I'll kick us off today by introducing our speakers, starting with Chris Magwood. Chris works with the Embodied Carbon team in the Carbon Free Buildings program at RMI. He brings focus to carbon stored material and the residential sector to the team and uses his experience with LCA studies and policy development to support the team's work. So he's been designing and building zero carbon buildings throughout his 25-year career and was a lead instructor on a hands-on design build program at the Endeavor Center and was responsible for many zero carbon, zero toxin, zero waste buildings. He helped found Builders for Climate Action and co-developed the BEAM tool for measuring material emissions in residential buildings. He authored 4 major studies of embodied carbon in new construction for the Canadian government and helped Canadian cities develop an embodied carbon policy. He's also published 8 books on green construction, most recently co-authoring Build Beyond Zero, New Ideas for Carbon Smart Architecture with Bruce King. So moving along to Sarah, as co-founder and CEO of Green Builder Media, North America's leading media company focused on sustainable living, Sarah has established a reputation as a visionary thought leader and passionate advocate for sustainability. She works closely with a diverse group of stakeholders in the building industry to develop impactful, long-term green strategies that are simultaneously sustainable and profitable. A former venture capitalist, she has participated in a portion of the life cycle from funding to exit of over 20 companies. She graduated from Dartmouth College and holds an MBA in entrepreneurship and finance from the University of Colorado. She lives in Lake City, Colorado with her husband, where she is an avid long-distance runner, snowboarder, and CrossFit trainer. She runs the rural segment for Energize Colorado and served as county commissioner. Erin Smith is the CEO of Energy and Environmental Building Alliance, otherwise known as EVA, which represents a community of over 50,000 builders and their stakeholders across North America that are truly the early adopters and innovators in driving sustainable transformation of the home building industry. He has over 25 years of experience in home construction, building products, sustainability, and nonprofit board leadership. He has diverse work experiences, including at startups in Silicon Valley and his own building and remodeling company. Aaron previously served on nonprofit boards for Wolfridge Environmental Learning Center, Health Product Declaration, Collaborative, CT Sustainable Business Council, and co-founded the CT Collaborative Living Building Challenge. Philip Squires is the Corporate Vice President of Sustainability and Procurement for Mattamy Homes USA. He's been in the home building industry for over 2 decades, which includes experience in multiple markets, multiple disciplines across the industry. He has a Bachelor's of Science in Business with a concentration in Business Administration and will begin a Master's of Science in Sustainable Architecture in January 2024. He currently holds a building contractor's license for Mattamy Homes in North Carolina. His expertise includes sustainability, procurement, and operational portions of the home building industry. Finally, Bill Santana is the Director of Sustainability at Mattamy Homes Canada with over a decade of consulting and development experience. He is tasked with delivering Mattamy's sustainability efforts to decarbonize their Canadian business, hopefully the broader industry, while providing the best homeowner experience. So with that, I'll pass it on to Chris to walk us through HomebuildersCAN.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for that introduction. And I am really looking forward to presenting to everybody on HomebuildersCAN and most excited about getting to the panel discussion with all those fine folks that you just got introduced to. So I'm going to take a few minutes here to explain the genesis of the HomebuildersCAN program and a little bit about what we're hoping to achieve with the program. And really, it starts with the fact that embodied carbon and Scope 3 emissions, which for home builders is made up a lot by embodied carbon of the materials in the buildings, have kind of, that whole topic has suddenly showed up on radar from home builders themselves to regulators to investors to home buyers. And what we want to do with HomebuildersCAN is really help builders who want to take a leading role in being able to measure, report, and act strategically to adopt low embodied carbon practices in their collective home building businesses. So what we see HomebuildersCAN achieving is becoming a supportive action network for builders to learn about embodied carbon and develop the capacity to be able to start incorporating embodied carbon and embodied carbon reductions into strategic plans and reports. What we don't want this organization to be is another labeling program. So we're not looking to get into the business of certifying homes or becoming another stamp or something like that that's going to sort of enter the market and be in competition with existing labeling programs. We just really want to support home builders in tackling embodied carbon issues in their practice. We kind of share some DNA at HomebuildersCAN with a group of different carbon action networks. Most of the other ones, or all of the other ones, come from Building Transparency is the convener of those, and they include ContractorsCAN, OwnersCAN, and MaterialsCAN. And really, these are groups that come together to use our sort of collective knowledge and learning and understanding to improve awareness amongst the peers and amongst the industry. And so it's great to see some of the sort of leading contractors and building owners and material manufacturers showing up in CAN groups, so sort of well represented on the commercial side of construction. And we're really hoping at RMI with HomebuildersCAN to do the same thing amongst the home builder sector. And I'm going to take a quick pause now, and we're going to have Phil Squires from Mattamy Homes Canada come on and say a little bit about what they're up to on embodied carbon and why Mattamy is excited to be part of HomebuildersCAN. So take it away, Phil.
I think we might have reversed Uno card here. Phil Santana from Mattamy Homes Canada is going to do maybe an opening remarks, and Phil Squires, the U.S. counterpart, he's going to do the panel. So I do want to thank everyone on the call for taking an opportunity for letting me give an opening remark. It's an honor to kind of give some opening thoughts to a great panel, and hopefully I do a good enough job to tee them up. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Mattamy Homes, we are North America's largest privately owned home builder. We have operations in Ontario, Alberta, the Carolinas, Florida, Texas, and Arizona, and are officially an early supporter of HomebuildersCAN. Over our 45-year history, we've always taken action to help our industry progress, and we see HomebuildersCAN as the next opportunity to lean in and to support our industry as we work through a rather nascent space of embodied carbon. Pick your data points, whether it's locally or globally, and you'll know that buildings are a large source of carbon emissions. And while some people might see that as a major problem to fix, we see this as an amazing opportunity to solve. If we take a step back and really look at our industry, we are amongst the decision makers that make decisions every day that not only impact the carbon in our homes on the first day, but the long-term carbon as well through operational. And while our industry has done a tremendous job over the past couple of decades being hyper-focused on energy efficiency, and we've seen tremendous improvement in that area over the past couple of decades, we don't have decades to solve embodied carbon. And don't get me wrong, I think Mattamy Homes Canada would love to mass produce zero carbon homes tomorrow, but we all face the same challenges regarding design, supply, execution, tracking, data, and ultimately affordability. So through great work like RMI and others, we're starting to have the awareness and the tools to make informed embodied carbon decisions like we've never had before. And while we want to have conversations on webinars like this, we are starting to have conversations with our consultants, our trades, and our suppliers about embodied carbon. And we're hoping HomebuilderCAN can really help bring the industry together so that we can all sit at the same table talking about the same goals of decarbonizing our industry. The last thing I'll leave is we see our homes today as carbon sources. And through partnerships like HomebuildersCAN, we're really hoping that we can turn that into carbon sinks. We truly believe that low carbon homes or zero carbon homes isn't necessarily going to be a proprietary or competitive advantage for Mattamy Homes. We don't see our builder down the street as our competitor anymore. We genuinely see inaction on climate change as our biggest competitor. And so hopefully through HomebuildersCAN, we can give everyone the tools necessary to start decarbonizing our industry. Thanks, and looking forward to the panel.
Great, thanks so much for that, Phil. And in a lot of ways, I feel like my work is done. You just did a great job of introducing the program and you know, the sort of intent behind it. So I really appreciate Mattamy's early support and your sort of, you know, clear statement and alignment with the kind of vision that we have here. So I'm going to spend just a couple minutes. Lots of this information is going to be available on the HomebuildersCAN website. In fact, most of it already is. So I don't want to spend a bunch of time reading slides out to you. So know that if you want to get into the details here and read all these words, and I'm not giving you the time to do that, that you'll be able to do that afterwards. So we kind of have three overarching goals with HomebuildersCAN. One is to increase performance on embodied emissions from new homes. That really is, you know, figuring out where we are today and how do we map to zero as quickly as possible. And as Phil mentioned, you know, also potentially getting beyond zero and moving our homes in North America to being carbon sinks rather than sources of emissions. So that's our first goal. Our second goal is to sort of try to bring alignment across the sector. So amongst the home builders, and I really like what you said, Phil, about not seeing each other as competitors, but that you know, our real competitor is inaction. And so we want to advocate for alignment so that, you know, amongst builders, we're approaching this the same way, and that we can take a cohesive approach to embodied carbon to regulators, lenders, energy efficiency programs, basically anybody who's involved in the home building space. We're really hoping that we can come up with a way that we can approach embodied carbon in a really collective and standardized way. And then finally, for the home builders themselves, we really want to be supporting and encouraging them to adopt and scale profitable climate smart building practices. And again, Phil did mention you know, the affordability issue in homes, and you know, all home builders in the end are businesses and looking to stay afloat and earn profits from what they're doing. And we really believe that you know, good climate action and good building practices can go hand in hand. And so that will be sort of the third leg of the HomebuildersCAN stool. We're hoping to bring a bunch of benefits to home builders who join us, including you know, being able to tell the story of your climate action to the folks you're trying to sell homes to, and sort of in a public relations way, to help be part of a strategic alignment, so that as regulators come up with programs, as ESG reporting starts becoming more standard, that we're all able to present the same kind of information in the same way, and it's understandable to everybody involved. And then to help those builders who are doing ESG reporting or will soon be doing ESG reporting to be able to sort of create the data and the reports so that the scope 3 emissions from their operations show up in a logical and, again, in a sort of coordinated way. So what we're going to be offering the builders who come to the table is training on calculating and reporting their embodied carbon emissions, working up a standardized reporting template, and really helping achieve the goals that people are setting within their own home building practices, connecting builders to funding opportunities, and advocating for, you know, this to be folded into regulations and incentive programs in a really well coordinated way. The builders who join HomebuildersCAN will be able to show up on our public-facing website. So the company's logo, any demo projects that company has done to sort of show what they're doing in terms of looking forward to low and zero embodied carbon buildings, promotion of their achievements. And really what we want to do is help not just achieve great numbers in terms of embodied carbon, but also, turn those numbers into stories that the home buying public can relate to and understand, and sort of put a real human face on the drive to embodied carbon reductions. Once the program is up and running in 2024, we'll be working with the builders at the table to help them get onto an embodied carbon reduction pathway. That's going to start by providing a lot of assistance to, first of all, benchmark where their embodied carbon emissions are right now, and then help institute a 5-year plan so that the reductions don't have to come, fast and furious, and they don't have to happen all up front. I think there's a really strategic way that we can help home builders sort of make 5-year plans that really, tie into the type of practice they have, the size of practice they have, and really be able to sort of help set people up for success by putting a longer timeline lens on how to go about doing those reductions. Some examples of what the reduction pathways could look like. We are looking at sort of 5-year windows. So, something like a 5x5 plan would be trying to achieve a 5% reduction a year over 5 years. There's a more ambitious, version of that where you might be attempting a 10x5. But we also are going to be leaving the door open to the home builders setting their own goals. So the sort of blank by 5, that's make your own adventure, fill in the blank there with whatever percentage you can strategically see yourself achieving. And then, also trying to assist those builders who are sort of moving quickly and trying to set some precedents towards, getting to climate neutral by achieving both net zero embodied carbon and net zero operational carbon. And people are going to be all over this spectrum. What we really want to do is help people from wherever you are now as a home builder. You might be already doing some low embodied carbon stuff in your practice. You might not have looked at this at all. It doesn't really matter where you're coming in, where your benchmark begins. We just want people to be able to start from where they are, and we're going to help get on a reduction pathway from wherever you happen to be now, and hopefully see the opportunities to reduce in these 5-year chunks. We'll be working out a sort of standardized way of reporting out of this program. This is just a snapshot of what this could look like. But really what we're hoping is that embodied carbon can start to show up in a really common way, so that there's a consistency across the industry. And this could be, a report on a single home, on a particular community, or across a whole portfolio for those builders that that are large and have many divisions. And you'll see at the bottom here, we don't sort of anticipate and certainly don't want to be in the business of competing with any of the existing energy efficiency programs that are in operation. And so, we'll be on the operational side, this type of reporting will just be the home builder reporting what they're doing, which program they're with, and sort of what pathway they're on with that program. So whether you're doing it via Energy Star or Zero Energy Ready Homes or Passive House or LEED, doesn't matter which energy efficiency program you're on. We would just like you to be working on the operational side hand in hand with the embodied side at the same time. So on the operational side, what we'd really like HomebuildersCAN to do is to help integrate embodied carbon into existing energy performance programs. And so we'll be working with as many of those programs as would be interested in working with us to be able to take what builders are doing in HomebuildersCAN and sort of wrapping that into any sort of embodied carbon requirements or reporting that any of those programs are considering undertaking. We'd really like to be able to publicize what our members are up to. So we're envisioning an annual report that kind of summarizes the pathway that the builder is on, and sort of, where they are on that pathway. Just a really nice sort of standardized template for reporting out on where you are on embodied carbon. And we think that report can also speak really clearly and help those builders who are doing ESG reports, port that information over to the ESG report, so that in working with HomebuildersCAN and sort of reporting via HomebuildersCAN, you're creating the information and the data that you can sort of drop into an ESG report in the appropriate places for Scope 3 emissions. So we have a number of early supporters who have signed on in advance of our formal launch. We've got a bunch of their logos here. We really appreciate their early support. It let us know that we were on a good track. A number of them were part of the advisory group that helped us sort of form the ideas behind and the impetus for HomebuildersCAN. And we're really looking forward to having lots more builders join us as we move towards our launch in January. By joining now, which you can do by going to the HomebuildersCAN website, we'll give you the URL for that at the end of the webinar. You can join up now as an early supporter. What we are hoping our early supporters will do is help us finalize the details of the program. And we'll be supporting them in their initial benchmarking efforts and goal setting, and really sort of helping them with resources and support to be the kind of first movers in the space and really start to lead on embodied carbon. So I'm going to pause the slide deck now, and we'll bring our panelists on, and we'll have a panel discussion on the ideas behind HomebuildersCAN. Tracy has some questions lined up, but we'll welcome the panelists to come back on camera and come off mute, and then I will turn it over to Tracy to get the panel started.
Thank you, Chris. So we'll first start with some prepared questions for the session and try to leave some room to also include some of the questions that are coming in from the Q&A. First, I'd just like to thank all the panelists here for taking the time to be here and participating today. I'll do my best to facilitate a quick but interesting discussion. So I'd like to start us off with a question for Erin. EBA was part of our working group for HomebuildersCAN and an early signatory to the program. Why is this effort important to your high-performance home builder members across North America?
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. I think starting about 2 years ago, we were starting to see many of the things that Chris described in the program happening across North America. I think from the regulation side, we have cities that have climate action plans who were starting to require carbon footprinting of embodied carbon for homes. And there wasn't really a mechanism in place to bring the industry together to accomplish that. I think on the other side, we had investors in our larger builder members that were starting to demand ESG reporting, climate reporting, and starting to understand carbon data. So that became really important to us to, number one, educate the industry on what embodied and operational carbon are, because I think that's one of the things that's missing in all of this, and I think where EBA comes in, is we've developed a net zero carbon building professional training series, both online and in person. One of the studies we did said that most builders didn't know it was good to have less carbon in their homes. So there was definitely an opportunity to educate, but we needed to put some of those mechanisms in place, like the BEAM and the EC3 tool for starting to calculate carbon. I think that we need engagement with cities on their climate action plans and what is realistic, at least to the industry leaders in this marketplace. And then finally, as Chris mentioned, I think it is of paramount importance that the manufacturers join with us to get us their EPDs so that we can calculate this correctly. So again, a lot of forces hitting. I would say that decarbonization has become top of the mark for the EBA community. And we're really excited to support HomebuildersCAN and bring this effort together and bring some conversations together across all of our stakeholders.
Thank you, Aaron. And I'll continue with a couple questions here, but I just wanted to invite all the panelists, if you do have any additional thoughts, feel free to chime in. I'll try to choose a name so that we avoid awkward pockets of silence, but otherwise feel free to chime in for any questions where you have additional thoughts. So the next one is for Sarah, seeing a lot of what you see from the Green Builder Media side of things. Can you speak to some of the market dynamics that are driving the transition to a net zero carbon built environment, and also the role that HomebuilderCAN can play in that?
Absolutely, Tracy. I thought you'd never ask. Thank you. Thank you and Chris and Beth and the whole RMI team for including me in this discussion today, because for those of you who know me, net zero carbon, decarbonization, electrification, these are my favorite things to talk about. And so anytime I get to participate with like-minded people in a panel or a session like this is very exciting. Green Builder Media, I co-founded it about 19 years ago, and we've been pushing a boulder uphill for a long time. It's been a steep hill and a big boulder, but I have to just first say, before I go into specific market dynamics, that I have never been as excited as I am about market transformation. I think the rate and the pace of that transformation is incredible. And Aaron, kudos to you. When I was at the EBA conference several weeks ago, net zero carbon was just on the tip of everyone's tongue, and not just the hardcore greenies like us and Thrive Home Builders, but there were folks from Pulte and DR, Horton, and Beazer and Meritage, and everyone was talking about net zero carbon. So that was so encouraging. I think that in terms of the dynamics, the market dynamics that we are tracking through Green Builder Media's market intelligence and data division that we call Cognition Smart Data, the numbers are there. So first, keep in mind, when we survey our audience, we reach millions of early adopter and first mover consumers and building professionals. So they're certainly the leading edge of the market. But where they are today is indicative of where the mainstream is heading in the next 6, 12, 24 months. So some of those specific dynamics that I want to call out. First of all, 70% of our consumer audience, the majority of whom now are millennials and older Gen Zs, believe that corporate decarbonization strategies generate positive brand equity and result in enhanced innovation, create more loyal employees and customers, and mitigate risks. So there's a very positive perception about decarbonization within that early adopter and first mover consumer audience. Another really important data point is that about 80% of that audience now connect the quality of products and homes with companies that have strong ESG strategies. So whether that is true or not, the perception is there that companies, whether it's a builder or a developer or a manufacturer or another kind of entity that has a strong ESG and decarbonization strategy, will actually be able to deliver higher quality products. Now, these early adopters and first movers are decarbonizing their lifestyles as well, by purchasing and driving EVs, and these are survey results in order. They are increasing the energy efficiency of their homes. They're turning their homes all electric and installing solar. And in fact, a data point that I really love to cite that we collected earlier this year is that 100% of our Gen Z audience told us that they want to live in an all-electric home because they equate all-electric homes with Teslas of the housing sector. We do see that given current economic conditions, about 40% of our consumers report that they're inclined to make their homes more energy efficient. And then the last data point I'll cite right now is that about 3/4 of our builder audience feel very optimistic about the future of the housing market, particularly because Inflation Reduction Act funding that's pulling through energy efficiency and electrification technologies. And again, the builders that we reach are high performance, healthy home builders that are building above code and already incorporating energy efficiency and electrification technologies into their homes and projects, but they absolutely plan on leveraging IRA funding to pull those through even further. And so they feel very positive about the prospects of the housing industry. I will stop there. I could probably talk for another hour about stats that we have. We actually have a state of the industry report that's coming out in the next issue of Green Builder magazine, and I'm presenting a webinar on December 6th on that. So if you're interested in more stats, please join me there. So I'll stop for now.
Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate everything that you said. It hits all of the nails on the nose of several important elements of the program, especially that with what Chris Magwood was saying earlier. A lot of this is just about getting people in the same room, talking the same language, and helping decarbonize together in a coordinated way. And part of that is also investigating these opportunities for funding, like from the IRA, and making sure that our community is aware of them. So the panel discussion, there's a healthy time for that. So hopefully you'll get a chance to speak more to what you were talking about. But in line, with general ESG goals or any goals that home builders can have, there's so many strategies that home builders can think of to do, some which are really easy and some which take a lot longer to wrap your head around. It might seem a bit intimidating, but I'd like to start this next question for Phil Squires in terms of what do you see are the low-hanging fruit options to be more carbon neutral today, and how do you see that HomebuildersCAN can spur more action on adopting those strategies?
Cool. Thank you, Tracy and Chris. Just honored to be here, and want to thank you guys for putting this forward for us. There's a couple of things, we work with one of the other initial groups, Building Knowledge Canada, who has been working with the Beam tool and looking at our homes specifically. And what we found is concrete is one of the highest contributors of greenhouse gases in the home building industry. And low carbon concrete is out there, it's available, but it's not readily used in our market. In the markets in which we build, even though it's available, that's a low hanging fruit. It's really no more cost to us as a builder right now, but it's a way to help decarbonize on the embodied side immediately with really no change to any building technique that we're using. One of the other things is we don't consider in some ways the amount of embodied carbon that is in the waste that we take off site. We pat ourselves on the back because we recycle it, but really let's not create it in the first place. So we're looking at panelization in many markets as a way to really reduce the waste that's on the job site. And some other things are the exterior cladding. I know if there are any builders here on this, on the webinar here listening in, you deal with municipalities who require masonry on the outside, or they require specific types of siding, or they require specific amounts of glazing or whatever that is. And we know that glass is very heavy carbon. We know that masonry is very heavy carbon, and there are ways to eliminate that just by working with the municipalities if they're willing to listen to us. That's where a group like HomebuildersCAN really has the ability to step up and help builders out with municipalities. They're requiring high carbon content products to be installed on the exterior of homes. So those are a few things. There's some medium hanging fruit we like to say, is we research alternate insulation products that are carbon neutral or carbon negative. Is we research what's the operational savings if we add a little embodied carbon through continuous insulation. So we look at that as well, and what's the offsets and trade-offs, and some of those things long term are going to be better off even if we add a touch more embodied carbon up front right now, until such time as our utility companies meet their goals of having a cleaner grid.
That's great. I'd love to jump in and follow up on that, Phil, because I think that's a really important point, and something that we'll be stressing with folks involved in HomebuildersCAN is, I think early on there was a lot of feeling that you could either look at embodied carbon and do really well there, or you could look at operational and do well there, but somehow these things were kind of like in deep competition with each other. And I think one of the big focuses for the group will be those strategies that are win-wins on both sides, where you're reducing your embodied carbon and your operational with the same move, or at least if you are being able to measure your embodied carbon, like you said, there may be times when a slight increase in embodied carbon up front has a really great payback over the lifespan of the building. But I think that the ability to iterate between embodied and operational is really important, and you can't really do that unless you've got a good grip on the embodied numbers and what that means. And I think I'm really excited to be working on the standard with ResNet, the embodied carbon measurement standard, because I think HERS raters and energy raters are exactly the right people to be able to iterate back and forth between those things. I think having folks in the energy rating space being the ones that are helping to measure and report on embodied carbon means that they can show a builder both sides of that equation and sort of lead them to the win-wins, but also help tweak the dials where you might want to invest a bit more carbon up front for a big gain in performance. So thanks for pointing that out. I think HomebuildersCAN is focused on embodied carbon because that's where there's a lack of information and support, but it's definitely not divorced from. I think we very much see these two things as, we need to decarbonize, and that's everything. So but we're going to be bringing the embodied carbon piece, but not ignoring the operational side.
Thanks, Chris. I'm also picking on a couple questions for the Q&A that might be relevant to the stream of thoughts. But one from Craig is noted that cost is mentioned to be the same for concrete, for example, and asked, why is low carbon concrete not being used? Either Chris or Phil, would you like to speak to that?
I'll maybe let Phil take that since he's on the procurement side.
So what we found is, as we've gone to our local markets, they have it. They're just not sending it unless we request it for some reason. And I don't know if Sarah can add to that with her industry questionnaires, but that's what we found, is it's out there, it's available. We just have to ask for it.
Yes. And Phil, thanks for yielding the mic. What we are seeing is that it's really about process change, right? It's that the architects that may be involved, or whomever it is on the procurement side, don't have enough awareness about it necessarily to actually specify. We'll call it carbon tech, right? So technology, whether that is low carbon concrete or steel options, or other types of technology that can either, say, sequester carbon out of the air, or on the operational side, become a better carbon sink, like some of these carbon cure and some of the other low carbon options for concrete, that are actually, by the way, more structurally sound when they take carbon out of the air and infuse them into the cement mix to create that low carbon concrete. So it's as much as anything an awareness issue, and it's a little bit of a fear and change. But while I have the mic, there's just one thing that I want to add, and I really appreciate Phil Santana in his original comments, and then Chris also reiterating that this is not a time to be turfy or competitive, right? We are not in either or moment in time. We are in a yes and moment in time where every single project that is working towards decarbonization and net zero carbon, and every single product or technology that is authentically kind of trying to achieve that same goal from product manufacturers, it's all good. I was presenting a webinar recently for the DOE and some of the national labs, and I was talking about some of the innovative carbon tech products that we have our eye on. And I mentioned cross-laminated timber, and someone who was in the mycelium or mushroom-based insulation space, which, you know, super cool space. You know, he raised his hand and he got mad at me, and he was like, "What? How can you be advocating for wood solutions?" And you know, that was my answer to him. Like, look, it's all good. We need it all. We need every single product and approach and strategy and program that we can right now to move us towards a decarbonized economy, and certainly a decarbonized built environment. So that's why I'm so excited about the HomebuildersCAN program, because one, I think that Chris and the RMI team and their approach is very collaborative. I know, for example, Green Builder Media, we've taken the lead on putting together a group of industry experts, including Tracy and Chris and others that I see are in this meeting, to put together a set of defining principles for ESG, and that goes hand in hand with HomebuildersCAN and everything that's happening with respect to embodied carbon. It's an all-in, all hands on deck, yes and moment, and I think that's one reason why I am so excited. But it's really important for all of us, again, not to be protective of our turf, because that's not going to get us to where we need to be in the time we need to get there. Because let's be honest, 2050 is really not fast enough.
Yeah, I'll just maybe pick up from there. I think, you know, a lot of times when we look at a problem like this, we want the silver bullet answer, right? Like, if you do this one thing, ta-da, you fixed it. And I think, you know, with decarbonization, there isn't a silver bullet. I think, Phil, you're right, sort of in identifying concrete as you know, a big contributor. And, you know, there will be some solutions that you can move to more quickly that have slightly larger impact, but, you know, that the yes and goes to like all the solutions. It really, you know, you can't just address your concrete and go, ta-da, did it, like, you know, did embodied carbon. It's like, you know, we have to add all of these things together. I think on the concrete question, I might just circle back around to that, because I know we've been working with some builders in Vancouver. The city of Vancouver has a really innovative embodied carbon program happening right now. And some of those builders were looking to get low embodied carbon concrete. And as smaller builders, what they found was that their batching plant could make the low carbon concrete for them, but they weren't so keen on doing it for like one home builder who's building one house on a particular day. And so, you know, interestingly, and I think this goes to, you know, the non-competition side, a group of those home builders talked to their batching plant and said, what if we all ordered our low embodied carbon concrete on Tuesdays, or, you know, like sort of have low embodied carbon concrete day? And that's, you know, that was a great way for the supplier to be able to, you know, batch appropriately and not have to make a small custom batch, and a great way for, you know, a number of home builders who are smaller to all benefit from getting that low carbon concrete. So I think, you know, there's always a solution, and I think, you know, that was a good, you know, innovative way and a good collaborative way to sort of find that solution. And I'm hoping at HomebuildersCAN, like, that's a technique that we can help replicate in other markets too.
Thanks, everyone. Really important message, Sarah. Thank you for sharing, and great segue, Chris. I am fielding a few more questions from the audience. One from Nick about how important our prolific and accurate EPDs are to this initiative. I wanted to circle back on Erin, your mention of manufacturers and EPDs and how important the importance that you see that is in the entire embodied carbon equation, especially since, like Sarah said, it's a yes and everybody all in situation that we have here. So could you speak to how manufacturers can play a larger role in decarbonization of the built environment, and how home builders can also help in this regard?
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. I came from the commercial construction industry, and I think 20 years ago, some of you will recall, Sarah, you probably recall, that the top 20 commercial architecture firms across North America sent a letter to industry and said, if you don't have your EPDs and HPDs, we're not going to use your product. And I feel like we're at that point right now. And the real simple part of it is, if you don't have an EPD, we have to generalize some results. We may have to take some results from Germany and try to use them. If you have a plant that's in North Carolina and close to Phil, and you don't have a plant specific EPD for that, Phil is using a much higher number to calculate your embodied carbon. So you're not getting credit for it. So I think the industry very quickly needs to move toward, you need to have an EPD. And it may be that you have a generic EPD across industry, and then you have a product specific EPD, and then you move to having a plant specific EPD. I'll kind of point to our friends at Certainteed Saint-Gobain as one of the best at having EPDs across all of their plants. I think you can find a specific EPD to the sheetrock coming out of their plant that's close to you. So that's the type of analysis, that's the type of effort. And I want to bring up one thing that's out there for if you're a manufacturer listening to this. I believe the Inflation Reduction Act has allocated, and Chris, correct me on the number, but I think $50 million to get your EPDs done. Take advantage of that, get us the data. There are kind of the big 5 topics, and Phil alluded to that. Like, we need them on concrete, we need them on shingles, we need them on sheetrock, we need them on steel. But those industries are actually pretty good. I think if you look across the landscape today, I don't have an EPD for anything in the HVAC industry. So how the heck do I calculate the correct number? How do I compare who's better, who's doing a good job as a supplier? Phil brought up that he really wants to use suppliers that are zero carbon or positive carbon. I can't see that in the data. So we're going on this journey of making thoughtful selections across the 16,000 SKUs that Phil and I need to select for our houses. We don't have any data for you. We need it as soon as possible. Sorry, I got on my soapbox there a little bit, but can I get an amen out of anybody?
Absolutely. This is your soapbox.
So if I can add to that, we've run through our embodied carbon reviews. We have people who look at us when we ask for their EPD, they go, what is an EPD? Yeah. And that's been something that I've heard multiple times from different manufacturers. And so part of what HomebuildersCAN and part of what Matabey wants to do is take our industry knowledge, share it across all manufacturers in the industry, all home builders in the industry, so that, to Erin's point, we can actually get accurate data on the amount of carbon that goes into the homes that we build. And until we have all the EPDs, we can't give a true accurate number.
Yeah, Tracy, sorry, Sarah, I was just going to add an agreement to your statement earlier that this is the time. I call it radical collaboration. And I love what Phil said. We need to have radical collaboration on this. We need to come together and learn and share and collaborate with each other, share best practices. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Erin. And first of all, preach. I'm with you 100% on everything you just said. So Green Builder Media and Thrive Home Builders recently completed a project called the Saunders Project. It was in a 220 home community in Fort Collins, Colorado. We did 2 Vision House. Vision House is our brand of demonstration projects. 2 demonstration projects. One of them was one of the nation's first net zero carbon homes. And when we started the process a while back, our intention was to select products with EPDs or some kind of equivalent. And as Phil and Aaron are saying, and I think as we all know, we simply could not do that. In fact, we couldn't even get close to that because of all the categories of products that do not have EPDs. Where we could, we did select products with EPDs or some kind of equivalent or some kind of data. And I will tell you, and again, I think pretty much everybody on this call knows this, but there's a difference between EPDs. There are higher quality EPDs and there are lower quality EPDs. And there are some EPDs where we were like, wow, this data is rock solid and I believe this. And then there were other EPDs where we were kind of scratching our heads saying, that's a pretty aggressive claim for something that doesn't quite seem substantiated. And then when we would ask the manufacturer about it, they might have a little bit of a fluffy answer or say, oh, well, it's third-party certified, and that was that, and it wasn't quite satisfactory. In order to get to a net zero carbon home, it did include that upfront meticulous specification of products, and then, of course, following best sustainable design, building science, and construction practices. But on the back end, we had to purchase carbon offsets. And I know that the carbon offsets discussion there's some people that are anti-carbon offsets because they say, look, you can build a terrible, poor performing house and then buy carbon offsets and you can call it net zero, which is clearly not in anybody's best interests and not at all what we're advocating for. But I do think those carbon offsets are going to be necessary, at least for now, to get us to net zero carbon. It's kind of like a bridge, a bridge or a Band-Aid solution until we can get to a much longer term solution. But Tracy, you would ask what builders can do to get involved. Certainly joining HomebuildersCAN and other groups and working with Phil and RMI and us and EBA and other entities is a great first step. But I think that process of the meticulous product specification, following best design, building science, and construction practices for sustainable projects, and then the carbon offsets piece. To me, that's kind of the current equation. And Phil, you're the pro at this. You're the man. I'm just the perpetrator. So you can confirm if that's indeed correct.
Thank you, everyone. This is great. I wish I could keep on going, and I just looked at the time, and I did realize that might have been my last question for the day. But there's a bunch of other great ones on various topics like roofing and insulation materials, cost of embodied carbon analysis, and also verification oversight. So we'll definitely want to let everyone know who's attending here that we'll look through them, and maybe we'll even follow up with maybe these are defining some of the FAQs that are going to be on our website when we formally launch, or some other form, but we'll make sure that we try to address them. I think one good point to be brought up that just in case you don't know what an EPD is, that's an environmental product declaration. It's in the embodied carbon world, it's really important because it's essentially a product's environmental label that gives you a lot of information about the product's environmental impacts, one of them being the embodied carbon emissions associated with its manufacturing. So similar to calories on a nutrition label on that, Cliff Bar that you might have in your backpack, EPD works in a similar manner. So just in the last couple minutes here, I wanted to close us off. So Chris, if you could go to our final slide here. But first, thank you, Aaron, Phil, and Sarah for a really great discussion and great insights. Again, look forward to your continued participation in the program as we build it out. I want to remind everyone that you'll receive a link to the recording of this webinar after it concludes. So all of the information that you see here, you can find it on our website. The link is up there, but it'll also be recorded and distributed to all of you. So like we mentioned earlier, we're currently planning for a formal launch early next year. You can sign up as an early supporter with the QR code on the screen or by visiting the website. We're also very happy if you share this initiative with your network, and are also accepting ideas for anyone else you think that we should talk to in this space. So I just wanted to say thank you all again for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to the launch next year and also seeing some of you at the table. Chris, back to you for any last words.
Yeah, I think I'll just wrap up by thanking everybody who's online right now. Thanks for taking an hour out of your day for hearing us all out. Thanks to Sarah, Phil, and Aaron for joining us today. I really like Aaron's notion of radical collaboration, and I feel like that in a lot of ways is underpinning what we're trying to do here at HomebuildersCAN. So if that notion of collaborating within the home building space is of interest to you, if addressing decarbonization is of interest to you, I hope you'll join us at HomebuildersCAN. And thanks for spending this time with us today.